have to tell you, for my very first one, it's like, it's good. It's a really good tumbler for being my very first one. There is, and it's going to be hard to see because of the glitter, but it's kind of rough in some areas. So we're going to have to do some sanding. And then I think we're going to have to do another layer of epoxy. Whoa, my goodness. Okay, so we're just going to leave it just like that. The epoxy that I was using is this stuff right here, which is the same stuff that I'm going to be using today. The other thing that I had used that I like more is these silicone cups instead of like the disposable, you know, one-time use ones. But I left it like this because you can see all the hardened epoxy that's on there, but ouch. But all you have to do to clean this is just like squeeze it off and it just starts coming off. Just shake it down. See all the pieces just keep coming off. Like, this is perfect. So I like having the silicone molds versus like the disposable one-time use plastic, just so like, you know, we're just reducing our carbon footprint. I am like stickler for single-use plastics. Okay, so we have that. Just clean that. These popsicle sticks came with the silicone molds in the same process. You just kind of scrape the leftover silicone off of them and they just come right off. Like that. There it goes. It's just coming right off. Okay. Then to keep going with this tumbler, the next supply that you're going to need is some fine grit sandpaper. I have like a little sanding block, and what we're going to do is we're going to knock off some of the hardness or the roughness before we do another layer. I was going to do a sticker, but you know what? I changed my mind. I don't think I want to do a sticker. For my very first one, we'll just keep it real basic, and no sticker is needed for this one. Okay, so just some sandpaper. Now, this epoxy that I'm using is safe and non-toxic. However, I was talking to the maker and the owner of this, and he was saying that no matter if it's safe and non-toxic, or if you're even working with wood or whatever and you're sanding, those dust particles are not good for your lungs no matter what. So he did suggest wearing a mask while I did that. And I mean, everyone has these laying around, I'm sure. So just grab a mask or two while you're sanding, because you don't want to inhale the dust particles. He said they won't, like this particular epoxy won't hurt your lungs or kill your lungs or anything like that, but it will irritate them. And it's just the fine particles will irritate your lungs no matter what it is. So getting a mask, I'm actually going to wear two because these are kind of thin. And then the only other thing that you're going to need is some gloves, because we're going to work with epoxy again. And then right here, I have my tumbler turner right here, and then also some more parchment paper or silicone mat if you have it, to work on the next layer of epoxy. But first, before you do that, also, we're going to need a rag and rubbing alcohol, which I'll get here in a second. But that is so we're going to wipe this down, and it will like wipe down all of the dust particles. But I'm going to sand this first. Oh, I wanted to show you. This is the tumbler that I did at TumblerCon. It is not perfect by any means, but it's a rhinestone tumbler. I think this is so cute, and I use this epoxy for this. Like, this is... Whoop! I'm dropping water on my desk, but I mean, look at how cute that is. Definitely not perfect. Like this right here, I didn't even finish it while I was at the convention. I ran out of time, and so like the very bottom is not finished, but you know what? It looks really good in my opinion. Okay, so I got my ladder, and let's just do a little bit of sanding. I'm gonna dry up this with my sleeve. Okay. Mask first. I almost did. I think it's blew out. Pretty sure it's blew out. So I'm going to get probably a little muffly sounding to you. Let's see. You would think I would know how to wear these by now. Okay. And you want to do a fine grit sandpaper. Don't get a rough grit sandpaper because then you're going to be able to see those lines when you're done. But just a fine, and all we're doing is we're knocking off the roughness. My glasses are falling off of my face. Okay, just doing the bottom. Okay, now it feels really smooth to the touch when I rub my hand over it. Little spot right here. Essentially, you just want to make sure that it feels really smooth to you. Oops. Okay. Woohoo! Now we're done with that. Okay, I'll wipe this down. I have like one of those like really big terry cloth towels. I love these things. And then just take some rubbing alcohol and we're going to just wipe this down. Getting all of that, those really fine dust particles, we're just going to clean off of the cup. Okay, I'm going to flip this over. This is the side that's still pretty clean. And I'm going to give it one more good wipe down. All right. Whew. Okay. Now that that's done, you can take your face mask off if you had one on. And then the inside of this, which we'll fix it in like the next part, the inside of here has a little bit of epoxy. Is it hard to see? I'm sure it is. Oh, it's right here. Okay. So all you're going to need for that is just an X-Acto knife, and we're just going to cut it. And then I already knew from the get that I didn't put enough paint or glitter at the very top of my tumbler, so you can see a little bit shining through. You know, for my very first tumbler, obviously there's going to be mess ups. So I did mess up here. But like, again, this looks really good for being my very first time. Okay, I am going to use another cup and another popsicle stick because I did not clean those off all the way. I'm sure you don't want to sit here and watch me clean it off. And then I don't need a whole lot of epoxy today. I only need a very, very thin coat. So I'm not going to use a whole lot on the inside of these right here, this small little cup, there is some lines right here. It's gonna be hard to see, but there's some lines. So I'm only going to do a small amount of epoxy today and then just do like a final coat over the top of that. And then this thing also has those. Oh, that's funny. Look, instead of using gloves, because I'm only going to do a small amount, I have little thingamajigs. In the bar scene, I used to work at a casino way back when, and I was a cocktail server. The bartenders would call these finger condoms. I'm not quite sure what the name of these are. That is not the correct name, I am sure. But that's what I'm going to be using instead of gloves today, since I only have to do a small amount. Okay, so this right here is the tumbler turner. I'm gonna plug it in. And then this one has like an on-off switch. I'm just gonna keep it off for right now since we don't need it just yet. Squeeze that back on there. And then, where is my parchment paper? This is my parchment paper. I'm just going to lay this over the top of it so it doesn't make a mess all over my desk. Come on. Fine, that'll work. Okay, so with this stuff, this epoxy, the same thing as last time, is it's 1-to-1. Start with part A. The reason why it's purple in here is because it's UV, that's the UV resistance. But once you mix it and then it dries completely clear. So the purple, don't worry about the purple. And then I am just going to eyeball the, oops, 2.5. Looks good. And then going up. Okay, so I only did 2.5 milliliters today versus I did a half an ounce, I think, last time. Not yesterday, the day before. Yeah, I did a half an ounce last time, and it was like way too much epoxy for for this. But for this one, I just did 2.5 milliliters per thing. And then make sure you stir it. And you want to make sure that you stir it really well, because this is what is the activation, is the stirring. You're putting part A and part B together and you're activating it. If you don't do this process and you like only put part A on there, then it will never harden. Okay, so there's that. I'm gonna get my little, I'm like nervous about just using what if I get it on my hands? Maybe I'll do this. And then I'll do one on the right hand just in case. Now, if you get this stuff on your hands, just wash it off. There should be no skin irritants, but like I have a thing with stuff being on my hands. It's really weird. Kind of creeps me out. Okay, ready? I'm gonna drag you over here. There we go. Okay, so this little guy has like a, do you see that? Where it is like a spout. So I'm just gonna turn this on. And then if you go, like it was rolling in this direction, now it's rolling to the right. If you press off and then back on again, now it's going to the left. So if you want to change the directions, you just have to turn it off and then back on. So I'm just going to nicely pour this on here. Oh, I'm making a mess. The thinner the coats, the better for the epoxy. You don't need a whole lot of epoxy, period. But especially for the last coat, we're just doing one really nice thin layer. And I just got some on my fingers. That's all right. Okay, decided that maybe if I just dip my finger in it and I wipe it on there is so much better than trying to pour it and keep up with the spin. Okay, areas that I'm going to focus on this time is going to be the very top. It's pretty uneven at the very top. That was just my bad from the first time when I did the epoxy. So I'm making sure I have a good, decent amount up at the very top. I probably could mix a little bit more. So I'm going to mix a little bit more because there is still some dry spots. I definitely don't like to be wasteful, so I only wanted to mix just a little bit just in case, because the last time I mixed way too much and I had so much left over that I was going to waste it. It was driving me nuts. So maybe if I just keep playing with it with my finger, because there is some dry spots. I was this many years old when I learned how epoxy actually works. Oh gosh, 10 years ago, there was like one epoxy on the market, and I'm pretty sure it was Michael's that sold it, and it's still there. It's in a purple box. I bought that once, and the smell of that so bad, I returned it. I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to be able to use this. So I returned it, and that was like a journey on epoxy. I knew that how to use it. I just was not going to because it smelled so bad. Okay, I don't even think I'm going to need another or to mix more, because now I'm playing with it. It seems like I got a really good coat on everything. Like everything seems to be really smooth and wet from the epoxy. So the other thing I learned this the other day is if you go and look from the side, you can tell if there's a divot in places, and it actually looks right here. It looks really smooth for the most part, and so if it doesn't look smooth when you're looking at it from an angle, then just rub your finger and kind of move the epoxy over the top of it. This epoxy is a gap filler too, so it will fill the ridges of of your area if you do have like a blank spot. Have a little bit more left in this little cup. So I'm just going to go over the top of this. Really focusing on the edge of this just because I didn't do it the first time. Quite obnoxious, but we learn as we go. Remember, first tumbler ever. They're not hard. I would have to say that doing these tumblers, especially just a one single glitter thing, it's not difficult. Time consuming. There's processes that you have to go through and sit there and wait for it to dry. This stuff will only take an hour to two, depending on how thick you make the epoxy. Notice that the bottom of the tumbler right here, it took the longest to cure. And if you do like a super thin coat, it won't take as long. Plus, like temperature does set a factor into this. So like right now, I think my office is set to 78 or no, 74. And so it's a 2-hour cure time. It will probably take about an hour and a half to cure. If you want it to like longer working time, you can put your room that you're in a colder environment and it'll take longer to cure. If you want it to cure a lot faster, you can put it in a warmer environment or take it outside. Like that's fine too. The other thing too, I was talking to Brian, the guy that owns Super Tight, and he was saying that if you wanted to cure faster, you could put tint to suggest that, because if you're supposed to do it on low heat and low blow setting, and it'll cure faster. But he's hesitant to suggest that because he doesn't want someone to come in with high heat and high pressure or in high wind and then be really close, because if you do that you could burn your epoxy and then you'll get discoloration in your epoxy. So on one hand he says what you can do if the process is low heat and low wind, very mindful that you have to be back here blowing it, not up close, and you don't want to do a high heat high wind because you will get discoloration. But outside of that, like, this is done and it looks super smooth as I look at it from the side. There is that one. So when you're looking at it from the side, I honestly just saw one little area. Now it's, where is it? You would think it would already came through. Maybe it corrected itself. I thought I had seen like a dry spot. And if you do, since it's still curing, just move your finger over the top of it and move that epoxy around, and then it'll fill in that gap. But I think it corrected itself, so that's cool. All right, that's it. I think that's it. I think that we're not even going to need another episode of how to make a glitter tumbler, because the process, I'm pretty sure, is done. And my finger is, these things are tight. My finger was purple. But so I just have a little epoxy left over on my hands from it touching the, like, getting all over there. So I'm just putting alcohol on my hand like that, and then just wiping my hand off, and then it's all gone. So that's all you need, just a little bit of alcohol. And then it should be finished. I should not require another layer of epoxy or anything. I guess if I wanted to do like a sticker, I should have done it, but you know what, for your first time, this ends up looking good. All right, y'all, I will see you later.